It's the Real Estate Podcast, brought to you by ANZ Home Loans for financial well-beings.
Hey, welcome back to another Real Estate Breakfast, your largest real estate podcast in Australia, as we talk your property from Bundaberg to Port Lincoln and everything in between, and streaming right now on multiple platforms, including iHeartRadio. The weekend is back as we chase real estate dreams around Australia. And you know, when it comes to dreaming, scheming and imagining, there is no bigger subject, I put it to you, that occupies our minds when we are wanting to buy either our first home, it could be our 10th home. The feeling is exactly the same. Total tunnel vision. I was going to say dedication, but I'll put a caveat on that because we spend a lot of the time on this subject. So due diligence, you got to get that right. And yesterday we spoke to Veronica Morgan on that very subject about doing proper, intelligent due diligence with data. And she made that comment that some of us pay more attention when buying a toaster, which is kind of sad, isn't it, given just how basic a toaster is. Really, somebody is paying more attention to a toaster? But the message is, don't be an idiot. Put the time in, otherwise a face explosion might hit you when you realise, oh, that was pretty dumb. I didn't ask enough questions. Yeah, so it's a Saturday morning, August the 23rd. Let's catch up right now with Michael Teys, who knows a thing or two when it comes to due diligence, especially strata. And good morning to you, Michael. Welcome to the Real Estate Breakfast. Now, this must be an area that you look at from a psychology point of view and probably scratch your head when it goes horribly wrong for people.
Yes, that's right, Craig. There is a lot of psychology involved in the due diligence of people buying real estate, particularly people buying their own home. But even in investment properties, people do act very emotionally about these purchases. The problem, of course, with real estate is that, particularly in apartments, it's hard to know what they're made up of and what's behind the boards. I think when you buy a house, you can get a better inspection done and understand more about it. But when you're buying into an apartment building or townhouse complex, there really is what the academics call an asymmetry of information, and the vendor knows much more than the purchaser. That can present problems in a whole range of areas, including building defects and the product safety of the construction.
Yeah, and don't feel like you've got a level of knowing the market because you have bought or sold 3 properties and you suddenly relax around the due diligence because you are only as good, I put this to you, Michael, as your last property traded.
I think that's exactly right. I mean, the stakes are high, aren't they, in property investment, and there's a lot of equity and debt injected. I've always been surprised when people buy a house or an apartment, how they then quibble with a lawyer or a conveyancer over the amount that they pay for the conveyance, which is ridiculous because, you know, it's such a big purchase and you want somebody, I don't do conveyancing in any way, so I'm not coming from a vested interest point of view, but you do want proper advice and people ought to be prepared to pay for that. That's both with lawyers and also with inspections of property and inspections of books and records when people buy strata. And that's something that is not done universally around Australia, which surprises me. The inspection of records is done routinely, well, not routinely, but it's common in Queensland and Victoria, but not always done elsewhere. And I think people run a huge risk, particularly when buying into apartment blocks, by not going into the governance of the strata entity to which they become a member when they buy.
The other thing that I just want to highlight quickly is new money that is in the market because, boy, some of these under 30s, they are multi-millionaires. They make a lot of money very quickly. And this must happen a lot where people are just, because they're just like anybody else at the end of the day, if they're not going to do their due diligence, doesn't matter whether they've got $10 million in the bank or 200 grand. If you get it wrong, you get it wrong.
That's right. Yeah, it's a great way to, how do I make a small fortune, start off with a big one. I think that happens. And also I think young people with money, there is that invincibility. Again, it goes to the psychological mindset of people when they look at property. It becomes emotional rather than clinical. and that becomes difficult. There's, very interesting studies done on the pointlessness of disclosure at the point of sale. And, I've spent a lot of time looking at, what do vendors and what do strata entities have to provide to purchasers, and how do we provide that information? And of course, the practice lately has been more is better. I don't think that's right. I think the more you give people, the more they drown in information, the less they take in. Disclosure that is short and punchy is more likely to cut through, particularly with young people who we know are used to media and consuming information in short bits.
Yeah, very good points. And a couple of months ago, we were talking about that Grenfell Tower tragedy in London, which is currently on Netflix. If you haven't seen this, take a look at it. Over 70 people lost their lives due to highly flammable cladding. And then we also had that fire break out in a tower in Dubai, suggesting that the same type of combustible exterior panels were involved. What is happening in Australia? Well, we talked about that briefly a couple of months ago, but Michael, you're an expert on that. And when we come back, we're going to pick your brain about that product, those combustible panels. We'll do that after this.
Every morning from 6 a.m, we bring you the latest real estate news with diverse perspectives from leading industry experts. We deliver the most property podcasts across Australia every week. You're listening to the Saturday Property Market Update.
What do you reckon the median was in Sydney in 1995?
I'm going to take a stab. I'm going to think it's in the 200s somewhere.
Yeah, I knew that you were going to get very close to that. 197 grand. Melbourne, you want to take a stab at that?
Well, I know it's going to be less than Sydney, so I'm going to guess in the 160s.
85 grand for a house.
No way. Wow.
Brisbane was 127,000. Take a stab at Adelaide.
Hey, so hang on. You're telling me Brisbane in 1995 was about 50% higher than Melbourne?
Yeah, apparently
so. Look, Adelaide, I would have to think was less than Melbourne, so maybe that's in the 60s?
81,000. The median house price in Perth was 87 grand. And if you are in Canberra this morning, what do you reckon Canberra 1995 median house price was?
I'm going to stick to around the 80s. It seems to be there's a bit of a, bit of a collection there. Where was it? Tell me.
125,000.
From the emotion of property, the economic inflation, managing your expectations, lack of stock, price growth, construction appetite, days on the market. Stay informed with us and know your property.
And it is a Real Estate Saturday. The weekend is here. You might be getting ready to leave for the day. Pack the lunch. Make sure you got the liquids, the coffee on the run from property to property. If you're doing that, good luck. We have got Michael Teys with us. And Michael, I just sort of set that up before the break, talking about those panels, man. They're a major issue, aren't they?
They certainly are, Craig. You're talking about aluminium combustible panels, which are those shiny things that appear on the exterior of high-rise buildings. They were very fashionable earlier this millennium. They came about in the late 90s as soon as we deregulated the supervision of builders and developers on site and went to private certification. These products started streaming in from overseas, and essentially they're petrol. 1 square metre of aluminium composite panel cladding is equivalent to 5 litres of petrol. And we've got these on buildings all over the world, and certainly in Australia. And the other thing that's often forgotten is we've got another product called expanded polystyrene, which has been used on houses. And that's effectively Coolite. And you can put a knife through some homes and find that this is built out of the same stuff that eskies are built out of. And whilst it's not as dangerous perhaps as cladding, which will burn buildings within minutes, polystyrene melts. So it's an issue for houses as well, and particularly a lot of houses in Victoria were built with this product. The focus has been on high-rise because of the deaths in Grenfell and because we had a major fire in Melbourne at La Crosse in 2014 where the building was evacuated. Fortunately, no one lost their life.
That is just so scary about that petrol comment. One panel equivalent to 5 litres of petrol. It is just another tragedy waiting to happen. And we know that it's going to happen, right, because of the volume of this dangerous product out there right across Australia. And that brings me on to the question, do we actually know how many of these panelled buildings are in Australia right now?
It's uncertain how many buildings have it. Some estimates have it in around 3,000 or 4,000 buildings in Australia, although the New South Wales Cladding Authority, which is called Project Remediate, has the number at much less than that. They say that they've identified that there's still 225 buildings in New South Wales with this product. Only a very small number of them have actually had it removed, even though we are 15 or 10 years down the track from the La Crosse fire. The Victorian figures are a bit different, and this is what makes me doubt the New South Wales figures. Victoria say that there's 1,600 buildings there. We've got uncertainty about how many buildings exist with this, but what we do know is where cladding has been identified, there has been a very, very high reluctance by owners to remediate. Now, this product has now been banned retrospectively, so if it's on a building, it has to come off. The authorities have been very slow to prosecute people for not removing it. And I've been in many meetings with owners where we've discussed this product, and there's just been a refusal to remove it. And part of that, again, going back to psychology, is people feel angry that they've been trapped in a building with this product. They want to blame somebody else. They're looking to government to fix the problem. But really, this is an owner's responsibility. It goes back to the point about due diligence and buying into buildings where you don't know what they're made of and who made them. This is a real problem socially, and the cost to remediate these apartments is very high. It can be in the order of $100,000, $150,000 per apartment. So, if you're in an apartment of an average value, that could represent your entire equity investment. So this is a very big problem. Not only is it a threat to people living and working in these buildings, but it is also a threat to the wealth and the financial resources of investors.
Going back to the regulatory government body that was making the decision. Now, let's just say that you go into a job or you're responsible for a job. You've got no clue whatsoever when these panels first come across your desk. If it's me, I'm saying, okay, set up a fire simulation where we light these panels and see what happens. You do it in a warehouse, whatever. You got the fire truck there to extinguish them. One simple test like that would have been all that it took, right?
Well, this is interesting, Craig, because the tests were done. And the test showed this stuff to burn. Yet the manufacturers of this product continued to sell it. We know that suppliers of this product knew as early as 1996 that this stuff burnt, and burnt like no other substance that had ever been put on a building. Grenfell, I think from memory, burnt 8 floors within 14 minutes. La Crosse in Melbourne, the fire spread from 11 floors, because this burns up the outside of the building, not inside. The fire spread 11 floors in 11 minutes. So this stuff is incredibly flammable, and manufacturers knew it from as early as 1996. There's evidence that government in Australia knew about this as early as 2012.
Wow. Yeah, that is a scary scenario, what is happening in Australia regarding all of these panels. And we need to really talk this through a little bit more with you, Michael. So I'm going to get you back on Monday so we can continue to be informative to people, because there will be people that are probably on the verge of buying an apartment and they haven't done their full due diligence. So we'll continue this on Monday. So enjoy your weekend, and thank you so much for your deep knowledge on this ticking time bomb situation.
Thanks, Craig. It's been a pleasure.
Explore new property destinations where you could live, with exclusive interviews covering real estate news and market insights. We connect you to the best real estate information across Australia. The Real Estate Podcast.